A draw, a loss and a win made for a varied but difficult week once again for our beleaguered club. Whilst the 5-2 victory over Arsenal sends us into the international break a little bit happier, there are still significant issues in RG2. Welcome to episode number 359 of the Tilehurst podcast, where we will attempt to unpick the last 7 days here in Berkshire. Joining me, as always, is the main man, Ross. Ross, I'm gonna wow you with a fact before we start.
Okay, let's go.
Did you know that badgers eat hedgehogs?
Badgers eat hedgehogs? I didn't know that. That's fascinating. Yeah. Okay.
My dad told me that the other weekend, and I was like, really? And I Googled it, and they actually do. Apparently, the underbelly of the hedgehog is like prime, which made me feel a bit sad because I just thought they were all mates. Do you know what I mean? I just thought they were all like...
Do you know you don't get badgers over here really, or hedgehogs? They're pets, hedgehogs, if they're here at all. But I digress. Yeah, it's just an odd one.
Do you get honey badgers? Honey badgers, you get, don't you?
Not in this part of the world, luckily. On the other side of the country for sure. But no, just mountain lions, bears, and moose to deal with up here.
Rubbish. They don't eat anything, do they? Pathetic. Anyway, we do digress, as Ross said. Thanks as always to you guys for listening in on what is I don't know. We run out of words to describe how ridiculous this season is, but we're still here. We're still going. As we've always said, as long as there's a football club and we haven't been moved on, we will continue to do this. But the people that have stayed with us all the way through, obviously you guys as listeners, but ZC said Films who continue to prop us up. So thank you so much to those guys for their support, love, cash, friendship, whatever, everything. Talking of everything, we've got a fair bit to get through, haven't we, Ross, in the recap? So let's do that now.
Come rain or shine, it's time to relive the latest match action with the recap.
This podcast is sponsored by ZCZ Films, Reading's oldest ultras.
Right. We could, in theory, the last time we recorded this was Monday last week, I think, before Bristol Rovers. So we could do 3 games because we deliberately left recording this one until after the Arsenal game, and just to kind of let things settle down a bit, because we don't want to be knee-jerk and be completely over the top of stuff, but also want to be realistic of the situation as always. So we'll kind of skip out Bristol Rovers because that was a week and a half ago. Let's talk about Shrewsbury, and I kind of people won't know behind the scenes, but I do tend to do a kind of a loose agenda and then we just go off in different directions. And I've literally written, Ross, Shrewsbury, what the hell? Where do we start with it? Go for it.
I don't know. It's kind of a sick joke at this point, isn't it? Like, especially with because we'll get to talk about, us playing Arsenal soon. And, oh, no, we've scored a bunch more goals in the silly little pizza statue. Great. But, like, in the league, it just gets more and more sort of hilariously depressing every week as the team finds more and more ways to really make us feel great on a Saturday afternoon. Yeah, this one was tricky. Reminded me of the Swansea game last season under Paul Ince, where we went 2-0 up and then similarly collapsed. Obviously, against Swansea, we collapsed a lot faster than we did on this Saturday just come. But yeah, it just really wasn't the performance that we needed in the second half. As soon as that goal went in for Shrewsbury, that mental block just starts to come down on the Reading players, it seems. And yeah.
I mean, I was quite glad that it was a away game that I didn't want to go to because I just needed a break without being too dramatic. And we went for a walk around the University Lake at White Nights. And if you haven't been this time of year, honestly, it's fantastic. It's so good. A little bit muddy, but the colours, everything else is fantastic. Part of Reading, really, really love it. Anyway, the point is, I was getting notifications through, and I saw that we'd obviously scored the first goal through Sam Smith, which is brilliant because he's proven my theory wrong that you should never go back to anywhere.
Great week for him, actually. If we are going to briefly mention the Bristol Rovers. Scored basically, and he had a goal that was disallowed because it flicked off Femi Aziz's foot in the first 10 minutes as well. Almost a complete redo of the goal he scored against Bristol Rovers the other day. So yeah, good week for him.
And then obviously Ballard chipped in. I think we were 2-0 up in 15, 16 minutes. And I was like, wow, this is really going to happen. Like, everyone chill out. And I just started to get really excited. And then they scored around about 30 minutes or 30-something minutes, I guess. And that goal, when I saw that, I actually wanted to be sick. I don't think I felt rage like it because, the goal, and if you haven't seen it, I wouldn't recommend it. Honestly, Ross works with youth football. He plays football as well. But if that had been on my son's under-9 team, I would have got on the pitch and dragged the defender off because it was just...
Let's reiterate what goals, you can. Yeah. So Harvey Nibbs, and this is a player that just a few, maybe even last week or the week before, was talking about how one of Harvey Nibbs' best qualities is he seems to be quite smart. And he's got some good football IQ, and he does, and you can see that through the way that he's consistently the guy that makes runs that get found. He draws yellow cards out of the opposition quite a lot because he's just good at drifting in behind them. With this one, Harvey Nibbs has somehow found himself almost in the right back or right center back position, right along the Reading goal line, about 5 to 10 yards out, and he's trying to shepherd the ball out of play. And the ball's just never going to get there. And he's trying to shepherd two different Shrewsbury players off the ball who eventually, dispossess him and are able to shoot right past Button. And it's one of those where, you just tell your young charges, you get rid of the ball there in that case, right? Like, don't even try and pass it out or anything. Certainly don't try and sort of shepherd it out of play when it doesn't have the legs to get there. Just like a sort of momentary mental lapse, but unfortunately it kind of kickstarted the larger sort of mental downturn that Reading players do seem to tend to get as soon as they face some adversity in a game. So bad goal and symptom of a larger thing.
I mean, we've all got our opinions on Ruben Sellers, i.e. should be sacked immediately. But when someone like that does that on a football pitch at that point in the game, you literally might as well give up because honestly, I literally can't get the image out of my head of him, as you said, trying to shepherd the ball out. And you just think, just clear it. We're not getting points anyway, right? We're certainly not getting points for pretty football. So just launch it into row Z or double Z or whatever, how big the stadium is, it doesn't matter. We then go on to kind of, have this really dodgy scoreline of 2-1. And by that, looking on social media, everyone knows what's going to happen. And it did. We managed to concede 2 goals in 4 minutes in injury time, which is just, it's just ridiculous. Well, there aren't words to describe it. It's pointless really going over those goals, Ross. But, the subs were interesting. 71 minutes, crucial point in the game. He chooses to swap Dorset for Dean, or rather Dean for Dorset, and Elliott for Ballard. I mean, what did you make of those substitutions, if anything?
The larger issue for me was that, so I thought Dorset was good on Saturday, and I think Dorset was good against Bristol Rovers too, by the way. I'm going to call him Dorset over and over again because that's where I went to school. I know his name is Dorset. But in any case, I wouldn't necessarily have brought Dorset off, but, you can change one player in a line, as long as that player who's coming in to replace them knows what they're supposed to be doing and understands their assignment, and everybody else in that line understands what they have been brought in to do. So that's why you often see straight swaps at defense. What you can't do is bring a player in and then which ends up changing up the entire structure of the back line when you're in a crucial last 20 minutes of a game and trying to see a game out. I think Sam Hutchinson came on with a big piece of paper or something like that and was trying to explain to the defense what on earth they were meant to be doing. Clearly, the message wasn't exactly getting through because the third goal that was scored, Reading wouldn't have had a chance of stopping that because all of their defenders were nowhere near the ball. So clearly someone's dropped their assignment there, and I can't really blame the individual for that when the manager has tried to change the defensive setup, 2 or 3 times in the last 20 minutes when we're trying to see out a game for our first away win in a year. Just, go with the lads that got you to that point so far in the game. I understand that it was 2-1 and it's a dangerous lead and everything, but it's only 2-1 because Harvey Nibbs had a moment of madness, right? So other than that, it had been a clean sheet through the game. I don't think Bindon was great on Saturday, unfortunately, but really no one was awful. And then they just went ahead and started changing things. And we talked about how Sellers has been better at using subs than Ince last week, and he certainly has, but this one was a real misstep for me. I'm not super worried about the Elliott for Ballard thing. Going forward at that point, yeah, good to bring on someone with a little bit of a different with different qualities. But yeah, adjusting the defense that many times in the last 20 minutes, ridiculous. Anytime you see a player that's got a piece of paper in their hand, I know you see it from time to time, like in elite football and things like that as well. But for me, anytime you see a player with a big piece of paper with some writing on it, that's a failure of coaching. Any coaching should be able to get their message across to you. There's 2 rules, right? 1, no shit comments. No comments that you can say, yeah, obviously I didn't mean to do that. 2, and no like overly complicated stuff. And if you have to send on a piece of paper for 20 minutes to go, it's too complicated.
Well, we're going to talk about Sam Hutchinson later on because I've got some some fairly hefty views on his comments post-match up at Shrewsbury. Let's move on to the Arsenal game, which was, of course, the Bristol Street Motors Company, whatever it's called, plate, trophy, vase, I don't know, which was on Tuesday. You have to question the standing of a competition that changes its name mid-competition with immediate effect, right? For me, that's a little bit of a concern. Forget the quality previously that we were exposed to and the kind of teams that are in it or whatever. At least let Papa John's have their moment and just see it through. We were getting used to it. I was getting used to it. Right. Ross was getting used to it. We were all getting used to it. But to change it now, I was just like, I don't know what is going on. But anyway.
I don't know how to handle it. Yeah, it's Car Cup now. It's not even Pizza
It's just a glorified garage, isn't it? It's not. I'd genuinely never heard of them. And the fact they're kind of regionalised Bristol instantly means it just, I don't know, like no offence to Bristol, but it just cheapens it. It's not, it doesn't sound like a nationwide company, right? It's like, I don't know, the Tilehurst Triangle, although not that, but you know what I mean. Anyway, Arsenal under 21s. Very disappointed with them, actually. I have to say, I wasn't going there to obviously watch them specifically. I was there to support our team for whatever reason. But I did expect a lot more of them. I don't know what they kind of turned up with, but they just didn't seem on it at all. And we ended up putting 5 goals past them. Fairly professional performance, if you're going to use those kind of managers' terms. Vickers did well, Makaru did well, Big E obviously with 2 goals, but it was a very much changed 11 from Shrewsbury, 11 changes I believe. So it was nice to see some players get a run out there. I guess the big talking point really was the fullbacks. You had Carson at left back and NGW at right back. What did you make of those two? Because it's fair to say they've not had good seasons at all, like a lot of other players, both at very different stages of their career. What was your perception of how they got on in that game, Ross?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's the right place to start, I think, because obviously it was odd to see Nesta Guinness-Walker at right back. I mean, I know that before the game started, when the lineup had been announced, there was a lot of I'm sorry, what are we playing? What formation is this? A lot of confusion. Of course, it just turned out to pretty much be a 4-2-2-2, as is Sellers' way. Nesta at right back, how did I feel about that? Well, I tend to think of him more as a dribbler than a provider. So, I mean, moving him over onto his weak foot, not necessarily an issue because obviously he can cut inside. And he did pretty early on. He cut inside for the first goal and was able to be a large part of, I think he was the guy who gave the deflected pass over to Hib Hatchiman, who was able to score. So, yeah, after that, I was like, oh, okay, this could maybe go pretty well. For me, it sort of degraded into normal Nesta Guinness-Walker defending after that. Now you said that the Arsenal team weren't super great on Tuesday, which I would agree with. The only two players that I recognize that they had from their first team would be Fabio Vieira, who was sent off at the weekend. So he looked, whenever he got space, he looked pretty tidy. But then Nesta was asked to deal with Reece Nelson on the right side, on Arsenal's left side. Reece Nelson's a player who he's not playing week in, week out for Arsenal at all, or even getting in the squad every week. But he scored important goals for them last year, so he is a player that's near-ish to their to their squad at least. Their second goal in particular, Nelson walked past. He ran past, Nesta, and then he walked past Tom Holmes. So a difficult assignment, but again, he was given a difficult assignment, Nesta, but he just makes more issues than he needs to. Matt Carson on the left, really good. I thought he was great on Tuesday. Combined really well with Makairu. A lot of players combined really well with Makairu on Tuesday night. But I thought Carson in particular was good, and I believe Carson was the player who created the most chances for Reading on Tuesday night. So yeah, not a bad performance from him. We know what he can do. It's just about making sure that he can get further up the pitch, that he can actually use his delivery. And if you don't have Charlie Savage in the team or wing like we didn't for most of that game, then having his set piece delivery is also a very useful attribute. So I guess Matt Carson's the one that I'm more interested in seeing again. The Nesta at right back thing was an interesting experiment, but probably maybe a 2 and done. I won't judge him too much on being stripped by a Premier League winger over and over again. But yeah, probably just I wouldn't try it too many times.
Well, I thought the midfield was pretty strong. Caden Vickers, Mbenge, Craig, and then you kind of had Makari sort of floating around, and Jaden Wareham is a player we've kind of mooted probably should be in and around these kind of games, and he did start, and I thought he did a pretty good job of holding play up and just being a bit of a menace, really. I think the key thing for me was it was played at almost like a testimonial level in some respect, without disrespecting the effort the players put in there, because it didn't really mean an awful lot. Both teams are qualified from the group, whatever that means. I still don't really know the rules, to be honest with you, and where we go next, but whatever. There was still top spot up for grabs, which, was great to do that in the southern group of whatever we are. But, there were some positives there, and I guess that has led to a lot of people, kind of saying, well, why does this team not start in the league? And there are merits to that discussion, I guess. There are some players like Vickers that you'd probably look at and go, well, should be in the squad at least. How is Kelvin able to play with the freedom and the expression that he did in that particular game? Obviously Makari, who we've not seen for a little while in the first team, was very positive and has been very positive in these group stages of this particular competition. So there are players there that will probably be like, hold on a second, we got a week and a half now until Wickham away. Like, can I force my way into the manager's plans to maybe stake a claim? We'll talk a little bit about Wickham. I say a little bit, like a very small bit about Wickham, because it seems like ages away right now. But what of the players that have not been starting in the league or been involved in the league squads per se, who would you be looking at from Tuesday and go, they're dead set to get in, they have to get in to kind of change the complexion of how we've been playing recently in the league?
It comes down to both the performances in the cup and where we have needs. So there are players that I thought were really good on Tuesday night. I thought Makairu was really good. But I also remember that he was part of that Northampton away game that didn't go so well for Reading, and he was part of the issue in that he was doing what he was doing on Tuesday night, which was dribbling into the centre of the field. Clearly what he's asked to do, he's a ball carrier. But it just wasn't coming off for him, and he was repeatedly dribbling into the teeth of the defense, which was a problem. Now, where we do have issues currently, I think that a lot of us can think that Aziz is having some issues in the team. I don't think Aziz is playing terribly, but clearly you could see on Saturday his confidence level is just through the floor at the moment. I think that a bit of time out of the team.
He has to be dropped now for me. There's no way that he can stay in that team. Same with Nibs to some extent.
these are the games that he should be playing in for my money at the moment, to get some goals and like get some confidence going again. Because part of why that game, you said it looked kind of like a testimonial. Structurally, it was a mess, right? Because like we know that our 4-2-2 whatever is a bit of a mess, and they had a bunch of kids playing with some, guys injected into that team as well that don't normally play with it. They had a goalkeeper who was clearly told to play with his feet, but gave the ball away. I think I counted upwards of 5 times within his own defensive third.
Yeah,
So
he wasn't very good. Ovi Ajaria, I think is.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
But yeah, he wasn't great. They obviously had Edwards up top on his own, who was all right, but got very little service. So yeah, you're right. It was a bit of a mess, really, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. And so for me, that's the kind of game that Aziz should be wanting to play in, so that he has a bit more time to actually like try things and get confident. So for me, Vickers is the one from that who needs to be starting. He offers something different to Aziz. He's not just, he is pretty fast in a straight line, but he's much more agile. He's very good at off the ball movement that creates space, and he's very good at changing the tempo. In that he'll pause on the ball and stand his defender up and wait for things to happen around him. And if it's not happening, he's then got the skill to try and take on the defender himself. So he's kind of got the whole package there. Aziz is very blood and thunder, tries to just go straight to the goal right away, and sometimes that's not great for Reading. So I think adding someone a bit more creative like Vickers for me would be the way to bring some of this impetus from the trophy into the league.
Well, look, I mean, it doesn't, it doesn't really have a massive bearing on our season, apart from we've got another 2 games to play in the next round. But, it's always nice to see your team score 5 goals. There wasn't many people there, and, don't blame them, to be honest, but it was nice to be a part of that and see those players play with a little bit of confidence and smiles on their faces and stuff, all that cheesy nonsense that we like in football. But it was a fairly pleasant evening that I know will be instantly forgotten when we go up to Wickham and lose. So that's where we're at, basically. We got a week and a half from it, which is positive. Let's head into the mailbag, which is absolutely massive, and it's hugely backfired, but that's okay. We've got a little bit of time to get through it. So yeah, we're going to head into the mailbag after this short message.
Keep up to date with all things Reading FC. Follow the Tilehurst End on Facebook and Twitter.
This podcast is proudly sponsored by ZCZ Films. Remember, if you want to get involved in sponsoring the show, drop us an email to thetilehurstend@gmail.com.
Right, okay. Where do we start? So we like to ask questions, right? We like to kind of, rather than say, tell us what you think, because it's invariably, it's going to be negative stuff, which is fine. That's just the where we're at. And we've tried to keep track of it a little bit more than we have been. And with the weather turning, and it was pretty horrible on Tuesday night weather-wise. It was clear, but it was cold, and it always is when there's no one in there for obvious reasons. I had my very big Reading coat on Tuesday night, but we kind of asked you guys, about Hutchinson, which we'll get onto in a minute. Sellers, is the end near, which obviously is a bit of a stupid question because we know it is and it should be. But the biggest one that got a massive response was, what's the coldest you've ever been at a footy game? So I'm going to read as many of these as I can, and then Ross, you can kind of chip in and tell us where you're at. So we'll start with Bobbins because he comes up first for some reason. God knows why. Coldest I've ever been at a game was at Norwich in December 1995. 1995? How old is it?
I mean, if the stadiums are airy and breezy now, though, like imagine what they were like back then.
Exactly, yeah. So practically still in black and white, lols. 3-3 draw 2, and he kind of uses a bit of a swear word, but doesn't. He just says it was freezing. So thanks for that, Bobbins. Appreciate that. Sim, never heard of him. Literally never heard of him, but we'll read his comment out anyway. I seem to have a thing for going to really cold games. He goes to all the games. So what's he talking about? He hasn't missed a game for like 15 years or something.
Right.
He's trying to do I'm a better fan thing. Fulham 1, Reading 3, January 2016 at Motspur Park in the FA Youth Cup. I mean, whatever.
That's your own fault for going there, then, really, isn't it?
So, I live in London. I'll go to all the London games. Needs to grow up, really. Absolutely bought it. Could barely type on my phone properly. Good. That's not a bad thing. Wigan won. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wigan won, Reading 3. The George Puskas show. Yeah, that did look chilly that day, actually. Reading won, Sheffield United 3, 2018. That's the one I took a blanket to. There was literally about 8 people in my block in the Dolan for that game. It was disgusting. And quite a few people say that. Mike goes on to say, during the Beast from the East, because it was. We played Sheffield United a midweek evening game. It was something like -10. It genuinely was. Honestly, I felt ill afterwards. Like I felt like I was going to be sick. I was so cold. That was a disgusting one. I seem to remember there was one just before lockdown as well in 2020. I think maybe it's Bolton. That was horrible. But the Sheffield United game that they're referencing here, there was literally like a frosting of ice on the pitch.
I'll be interested to hear what people's like cold weather drinks are that they go. Like, how many Bovril drinkers do we have in Reading? Because we're a little bit much in Berkshire, so Bovril might not be our number one.
I was with my mate Darren on Tuesday night, and he had a Bovril, and it smelled absolutely disgusting. I don't think I could think of anything worse, to be honest.
Not my cup of tea either. My mum's, but not for me. Nice. Yes. I will say it's always a little bit funny talking about cold weather where, obviously I've been out here now for a decade and you're like, oh, it was -12. And I'm like, yeah, that's called winter over here. Like that's December through January.
It's different where you are because it's like clear. Here it's I don't know, it seeps into your bones. Like it's just horrible. Like I just can't cope with it. It's gross. Anyway, Nick reads that Preston away evening game in April of 92. How old are our listeners?
Yeah,
lashings of rain blown straight into the away end from the Irish Sea. Didn't help they had a dreadful plastic pitch. The 62 fans in the away end were barely cheered up by an undeserved late Craig Maskell equaliser. Goodness me, that's commitment, isn't it? That is commitment. Yeah. April should be all right. They should be better. But anyway.
You can never tell with that.
Yeah, I know. It's difficult. Pauline McDonald, December 2006. Yeah, that was a chilly one. Watford v Reading, 0-0. Dreadful board draw. Nothing to warm you up at all. The highlight was being given a mini Mars bar on the Star Cage. Love that. I did go to that game and it was cold. I think it was on TV as well. I feel like it was on TV.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. What was the temperature of Elm Park versus the Madejski? Was that a colder stadium, do you think?
I feel like Madejski's colder because it's just, I don't know, it just feels colder.
These modern sort of like metal and corrugated plastic board stadiums, they do just feel very cold all of the time, I will say. The coldest I think I've ever been for a game is actually not a Reading game. It was back when I was at school in Bournemouth before they had the 4th stand put in. And so it was a game in January or something like that. I think I was wearing 7 pairs of trousers or something like that because it was minus whatever. And all of that air just blows in from the coast over there. It's not a fun time. Obviously Bournemouth is balmy compared to some places in the UK, but
But this is the thing, right? So I went to university in Portsmouth for 3 years, and everyone go, "Oh, I'd love to live in Portsmouth. I'd love to live by the sea." Firstly, Portsmouth doesn't have a beach. Idiots. It's South Sea. And secondly, you don't want to be there in the winter because it's gross. It's constantly wet. There's salt everywhere from the sea, which is in South Sea, by the way. It's just horrible. So no one wants to live by the coast. No, get rid of it. Ian Anderson, he says, Odsall Stadium, Bradford. Blimey, there's a blast from the past. Coldest place on earth. Interesting point, Ian. Thanks for that. Dave McCormack. Bolton, Bandon Park. Well, these are all old grounds. Away, mid-90s on a Tuesday night, freezing. And Sir John in the way end with about 40 of us. Oh.
I'll say, like you commented on, oh, how old are our listeners? And we appreciate listeners of all ages, whether you're 5 or 85. But it does seem like the older listeners think it used to be colder, in the old stadiums. True. That's what I'm getting out of this. So maybe
don't mention global warming.
Yeah, wow, yeah, it's either tin pots not as we think they are, or it's global warming. One of the two.
There's loads on it. We could do another pod on this, but the one that keeps coming up is. Look, this is a good one. David says 20th of November 1991 v Northampton at Elm Park in an Autoglass Trophy match.
All right. So glass trophy as well. It's all kinds of fun.
David, if you're listening and you've got the program or the team sheet or something for that, can you just send it to us? Not to keep, just like a photo of it, because I'd love to see that. That's a collector's item. Autoglass Trophy. Wow.
I'd love to see if anyone's been to a snow game as well. Let's see some pictures of that, because you don't get too many snow games in the UK.
Yeah.
And we get snow games in the NFL quite a lot over here, and some of the fans that go there, they're in like the third block of like an 80,000 seat stadium, and they're covered in snow in these gigantic. That's commitment right there to your team. That is wild to me.
Talking of those hot drinks, Jack said he put a cup of Bovril on his toes at Wigan at home a few years back. Do you mean you put the cup on your toes, Jack, or did you pour it on?
Yeah, if you pour it on, it's not going to be warm.
Safety, mate.
Yeah, got to be careful with that. Anyway.
That's extreme measures. Anyway, I mean, there's loads on it, and it's really good to read these because there's just a lot of, I don't know, it's just nice to think about the past.
It's kind of nice, isn't it? Because it speaks to the conversation that every single family has had before they've gone out to the football or whatever. It's like, oh, you remembered your coat and like, have you put your thermal trousers on and all of everyone thinks football stadiums are freezing cold. It's just like another nice little, I don't know, part of our world, I guess.
It's a bit sad actually, because when we had blue collar out the back or out the front or whatever, it was by the kind of gate 5 by the Dolan. There used to be. I mean, he's still going. He still sells his coffee kind of around Reading and Tilehurst. But Anonymous Coffee had a stall, it was great because I used to nip out before I was doing the half-time stuff. But, years before, I'd run down just before the end of the first half, get the coffees, like proper good, shop quality barista coffees, straight back up and drink them during half-time. And now you don't get that. And with the best will in the world, I'm not drinking the coffee in the concourse. I just can't do it. And I don't drink tea, and I hate Bovril, so I'm out.
You're done. No more. Yeah, fair enough.
Well, thanks for that, guys. That was really good. It was nice to kind of go back and revisit some of those games. Let's talk a little bit about Sam Hutchinson, because he was not in good form, shall we say, Ross, on Saturday evening. What did you make of the comments that he made?
Yeah, difficult situation, isn't it? So just for anyone who hasn't seen this, the comments that we're referring to, Hutchinson gave a pretty frank interview after the Shrewsbury game. And I don't know if I've seen anyone else come out and really give much of an interview after that performance. So, I mean, fair enough. Difficult afternoon for Reading players and the club and fans again, obviously. But what he's kind of chosen to talk about in his interview is a suggestion that some of the kids that are playing around him are not ready, and I think probably referring to the mental side as much as anything. Which is a very interesting thing to say when, regardless of your opinion, you're surrounded by a team of children, and it's not going to change this season. So regardless of whether or not that's your opinion, I would say that saying it out loud is a potentially interesting thing. What made it even more not confusing, or just a little bit, what made it even more notable to me is that, I mean, if we go by the very imprecise metric of like player ratings through the season, right? Hutchinson has been consistently one of the worst players all season, and has been really an issue. And mentally makes the same mistakes over and over again, throws himself into silly challenges that could get him sent off, gives away penalties, gives away like other. It just causes issues on the pitch. He was actually okay against Shrewsbury, mostly because I thought Wing alongside him was really poor. But that was his first game when he'd been one of the better midfielders in a while. So, yeah, an interesting set of comments. I think we should maybe pull through them a little bit more. But, yeah, not quite an interesting thing to hear one of the experienced players talk about, I think.
I think for me, I mean, I thought it was absolutely disgraceful. I really did. And I mentioned that after the game, and a lot of people came and said, "Well, he's just telling the truth, and don't see anything wrong." Yeah, he probably is telling the truth, right? But let's look at leading by example. He in that interview, and I'd strongly recommend you go and listen to it. He talked about having the experienced players and all the rest of it. He is in that category, right? He has been, as Ross said, shambolic this season. He's really been terrible. On top of that, earlier on in the season, he chose to go and play a Legends game, in inverted commas, for Chelsea, a club that he made 5 appearances for in 7 years, right? So that shows you where his commitment level is. And someone said to me, "Oh yeah, he cares." He doesn't care. He cares about himself. That's what he cares about. And to go on to the social media of our club, or the official channel of our club, and say the things that he said about the manager. Yeah, we all know the manager's not up to it. We know that. That is literally the most obvious thing we've ever seen in this football club. But to go, basically come out and question him in that type of interview, and question the players as well, who, yeah, in some respects are not good enough. We're not bottom of the league by accident. Like, it's not rocket science here. But to do that to them and go, yeah, they need guidance, they need this, they need that, it's difficult for him to play with these players. Just get lost, mate. Honestly, I can't. I was absolutely raging with it, because I just looked at him and thought, if I'm working with him and he's done that, right? I'm literally going to lather him, because there's no teammate there. There's no, like, we're in this together, let's just pull through it. You can say those things. Of course you can say those things to people. You can pull them up and you can go, yeah, you need to do this, you need to do that. Do it yourself. Like, actually act like you want to be there. Stop getting booked every game. I think he's suspended for the next game anyway, which tells you all you need to know about where he's at. So, if he is consistently the best player in that team, great. You've got carte blanche to say what you want, right? Because no one can question your level of, professionalism, athletic ability, technical facilities, whatever, right? But he has been dreadful, and he's got the audacity to come out on the official channel and say that. I just thought it was. Honestly, it's the lowest of the low for me. I was raging with it.
My frustration is certainly with Hutchinson there, but it almost like blew it over for me for more of like a general experience players issue. In that, like, the experienced, in inverted commas, players that we have this season are Hutchinson, Yiadom, Harley Dean. You could maybe throw Wing into that category. And if you really, if you want to stretch, you could probably throw Sam Smith and Harvey Nibbs into that category. Past that, we really don't have that much. And I don't think a single one of those experienced, in inverted commas, players has really stepped up and become a leader in the squad at all. The person who's become a leader in the squad is Nelson Abbey, who's 20, and other players on the pitch who are young and will come on and just like immediately start contributing. Yet most of our good moments this season have come from the young players, so it's just very frustrating that the players that we brought in to be that experienced have
because you could actually look at the team. I'm looking at it now, and I'm thinking about what he said here. He did get booked, by the way, so I think he is suspended. He mentioned David Button making a great save. Fine, whatever. So he's not talking about him. He's not talking about Andy Yiadom. He's possibly talking about Tyler Bindon and Nelson Abbey and Dorset. Let's just remember that, both of those players, Bindon and Abbey, are now playing international football, right? As is Dorset, although he's had much fewer first team starts than those two. So that I don't really think that's fair to start having a go at him yet. He's not talking about Lewis Wing. He's definitely not talking about himself in this. He's not talking about Harvey Nibbs, who was at fault completely for the first goal. He's not talking about Femi Aziz. He's not talking about Sam Smith. He could potentially be talking about Don Ballard, who again is playing international football, right? So he might as well have just named them. I probably would have had more respect if he went, what, this player's not doing it, this player's not doing it. But to make sweeping statements like that, I just thought, no way.
Yeah.
So really disappointed with that, I have to say. Really disappointed.
There is a little bit of a complain first sort of like response in some of the players that were around in the last few years, for sure. I noticed when Nesta was beaten, and then Holmes was literally stepped past for this second goal that Arsenal scored the other day. Holmes immediately turned and started having a go at Nesta, which, by the way, watch any goal that is scored against Reading while Nesta's on the pitch, and regardless of whether or not it's his fault, someone will yell at him. That seems to be one of the responses, and Holmes just went immediately in for him. And I'm just like, Holmes literally just let the man step in behind him, and then went and blamed Nesta for it. Like, with these players who were here last season, excuse making does appear to have become one of the first reactions that they go to, which is disappointing.
And remember, he's got history, right? Sam. I know you said Sam Smith. Definitely not Sam Smith. I love Sam Smith. Sam Hutchinson, because he said last season or the start of this season, "Oh yeah, everyone always thinks I'm injured, but they don't know the reasons for it." What are you talking about? You're either fit to play or you're not. Yeah, it doesn't matter what the injury is. Quite frankly, so that comment was bizarre in itself. But I just think he's completely lost the plot. I really do.
Tell you what, anyway, if he was last thing I'll say on it, if he was trying to get us to talk about him rather than the performance, then he's done a good job there. But I'm not so sure that was the idea.
And you know what, we're them. Well, I'm the mug. We're the mugs because we just played right into his hands, haven't we? So we're gonna stop talking about Sam Hutchinson now because we've given enough airtime to it. We're gonna move into the preview, but we had a really interesting question via an email, which we're going to get into first in the kind of preview. So we're going to look back and then we're going to kind of look forward, if that makes sense. Anyway, here's a short break and we'll be back with you in just a moment.
There's another huge game ahead for the Royals, so be loud and be proud for the big match preview.
Alrighty, so international break, as we all know. We'll talk a little bit about the players that are going off around the world over the next week and a half in a minute. But we had an email from a gentleman called Henry Ireland, which is quite a name, that. Very fitting for international break as well. But he sent a really great email, talked a lot about how fantastic the pod is. He did. People think I'm joking when I say this. I'm not doing it on purpose. He did actually say some really nice things, which I won't read out, but whatever. He asked a really good question, and this is something that you can think about. And without sounding like a YouTuber, let us know in the comments what you think. If you could transfer in one player from the last 3 Reading seasons to have a real impact on this team, who would it be? Now, I'm going to let Ross go first with this, but we kind of had to work out what he meant by the last 3 seasons. And Ross was being really panicky and saying, well, does he mean this season as well? So I've made the executive decision that we're talking about the last 3 championship seasons. So not this season, forget this season. We're talking about the last 3 seasons before that. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Wicked. And I was totally fine with that because it means that I can pick Michael Elise.
It fits the narrative that we want to go down. So Ross, you're gonna go first.
Yeah, I'll go for Michael Elise. I think give it another 5 to 10 years, and we'll be talking about Elise as the best player to ever come through Reading. I think Elise is elite. I think he's a top 4 player in all but club status right now. He signed another contract with Palace in the off season. Yes, that's correct.
That's a good move. Good move for everyone involved. That actually.
Great move for everyone involved, and he did that while the subject of £50 million bids from Chelsea. So to me, football logic says that he's doing that. They signed him up so that they know they've only got a season or 2 out of him left, but they want to get the most possible money for him when they do sell him. I think Elise is going to end up at City or Chelsea sometime in the next few years. For us, he was just fantastic, wasn't he? That QPR goal in particular really comes to mind, sort of doing exactly what you wanted to with a long shot, bouncing in front of the goalkeeper while curving. There's just no chance. He was just such a stylish player too, such a great player to watch. And even since he's come to Palace, he's had some really great moments in the Premier League. Goal that he was a large part of with Sam Gallagher actually a few seasons ago against Man City. Just a fantastic piece of counter-attacking play, entirely run by Elise. That's a player. playing elite football, basically, in all but club status again. Not that Palace aren't, obviously a big club. But yeah, that's, for me, Elise was amazing for us, and he's just still magic. And if he didn't have the injury record that he has, I think we'd be talking about him as a real superstar in the Premier League already. So yeah, it's Elise for me.
I kind of knew you were going to do that. I did think long and hard about this. I really did. And it's difficult because we've got, it's a stunning question. It really is a stunning question. And a lot of these players that you could mention bring up a lot of, a lot of split opinions, if you like. So I thought long and hard about it, and I'm going to go for Mark McNulty. I'm not. I'm not going for him. But there's loads of players, like obviously Junior, love Junior. Lucas Jow on his day was absolutely fantastic. You could go in terms of players of potential and what they could do and all the rest of it. But for literally where we are right now and what we desperately need is a left back. And so I'm going to go for Omar Richards, who I thought, although got plaudits, was very, very underrated. You don't end up at Bayern Munich by accident. I'm really, really gutted that it didn't work out for him, because he was such a nice guy. Well, he is a nice guy. I think he's on loan at Olympiacos now from Forest, which hasn't really worked out either, to be honest. But he, I just thought he was great. Didn't chip in, I don't think, with any assists or goals in the time that he was with us, or rather in the first team. But defensively, stuck to his task, knew exactly what he was doing, great movement, good pass with the ball, all those kind of things that we're, with all due respect, lacking at left back at the moment. We haven't really found a home or a player to fit that mould. So yeah, Omar Richards I thought was absolutely fantastic, and was really gutted when he left, because it was a bit of an exodus after that season anyway. You could mention Josh Loren, I guess. Rinomota, loved Rinomota. On his day was just excellent in terms of that midfield engine.
Richards is a great choice. I'm with you on Richards for sure. And it's funny because I would call Richards and Elise both very stylish players, but in completely different ways. Elise is that sort of more, like Cantona, Berbatov, sort of like drifty sort of luxury footballer to me, whereas Richards, what an athlete, but still really stylish player, because he had such quick feet, and he could shuffle through people like Nesta can, but he could also actually use those quick feet to defend as well. He kind of reminded me, Richards, at time of sort of like an NFL cornerback, who's the player in football that defends against the pass. So they run with the fastest players on the opposition team, and they try and break up the play. And those guys are amazing. They can run super fast. They can hang with guys and change directions super fast. Richards had all of that. So yeah, what an athlete for sure.
Good player, really good player. So let us know one player from the last 3 seasons. We could have done a separate pod on that, Henry, but we really appreciate your positive comments, and appreciate you listening, and we love an email question. We absolutely adore it. So thank you for doing that, and a really, really good question. It kind of took a long time to settle on it for me. I don't know about Ross, but it really, I had to go through a lot of players, and oh god, I forgot about him. George Puskas, do you know what I mean? Like, all these players that we've had just hasn't really amounted to much. But anyway, right, international break over the next 10 days. Got a few players out and about, just down the road. We've got Rashisha for Zimbabwe. They drew 0-0 with Rwanda last night.
Okay.
No, sorry, not last night. 1 p.m. our time. They play Nigeria on Sunday. And then I would imagine he's coming straight back to Reading. Dorset is playing for Montserrat. I don't know who they're playing, actually. Not sure. Can't find that. But yeah, he's with the Montserrat team over the next week or so. Ben Elliott for Cameroon. He's got a couple of fixtures coming up. They play games against Mauritius and then Libya. So he's at home to Mauritius and then away to Libya. What a great place to play football.
Sorry, I was checking in on whether Rashisha had played with Zimbabwe.
Did he?
I don't think I don't think that he did, but do you know who was on the bench that day? Andy Rinomota.
There you go, big Andy, love that.
Yeah, love
but
it.
yeah, like Ben Elliott's he's got to go to Libya, but they also play Mauritius. Fantastic. Right. Tyler Binden is in action for America, Ross.
He's yeah. Thanks for that.
Greece, New Zealand. They're playing in Greece, and then they are playing Ireland. Actually, in Ireland. Don't know why I'm so surprised at that. On Tuesday, so he's one of the latest back, but he's only got a little hop over the pond to get back to sunny old Reading.
Yeah.
Nelson Abbey back with the under-20s. They are playing Italy under-20. Well, they were doing it tonight, actually, 7:00 kickoff. And then they play Germany on Monday. So quite a quick turnaround. And then he will be back with us. Basil Chuma, he is with the Malta under-21s. Playing Kazakhstan.
Great. Did you see the article about Basil Chuma?
Yeah, I did.
Very interesting. I read it was very. If anyone didn't see it, Basil Chuma, who already is one of the most interesting men in Berkshire because of his name and his Maltese heritage and all these, and that goal that he scored against Portugal. Apparently, he's also an Eton schoolboy and a very smart one at that. And has had quite the successful academic career so far, but also managed to come through the Reading Academy at the same time. So,
wow,
it's all right for some, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Having all these opportunities, Fair play to him. Great stuff.
Yeah.
And then he wraps up against Kosovo under-19s on Tuesday lunchtime. And then finally, last but not least, we've got two more. God, I nearly forgot the main man, Ross. What am I doing? Yeah. Don Ballard. Right. Don Ballard's on it looks like a lad's trip, to be honest. He's in Marbella.
I've got to, sorry, Ben, I just cut you off. I do apologize, but I've got to ding my local buzzer for the U19 England team because Don Ballard plays for that team, but Noel Buck, that's Noel as in No Hunt, plays for that England team as well. He plays for the New England Revolution. He is excellent. He has been showing up to New England Revolution games in a 2002 England World Cup shirt since he started making it into the England team, which is great. So the Americans are still trying to convince him to play for America, but keep your ears open for the name Noel Buck.
We've been rumoured about him, haven't we? There's kind of rumours that he might potentially be, on our radar. But we'll see what happens. Yeah. Dom's got 3 games. Quite a busy schedule. They beat Romania under-19s yesterday 6-0. Just a close game there. Then they play Japan on Saturday, and then he has Mexico on Tuesday, sort of tea time, basically. So, quite a busy schedule for him. It'll be interesting to see how many minutes he gets on the pitch and whether or not he can get in the score sheet. And then, of course, we have got Mr. Savage himself. He's with our under-21s. So they have just beaten Iceland 1-0, which puts us top of the group. And then we play Denmark on Monday evening in Newport, as the game was today. Cracking ground, Rodney Parade. Love that place. So we will see what happens with him. Interesting for Wales there, because they've got massive, massive games coming up over the next couple of days.
You went that's good. That last bit there, you went for Wales, but previously you said we, and I was like, remember, we're an English-based podcast,
I know, but I can't hide it. I've got to get involved.
No. He's wearing a Wales shirt, guys.
Exactly. You can't see it, but I am, yeah. But best luck to all those players, and I hope they come back safe and with a little bit of renewed energy and a bit more positivity, and hopefully they have a good time away.
Yeah.
We head to Wickham on Saturday 25th, which seems like a lifetime away at the moment. Sold out away end again. Fantastic support for the Royals from the Reading fans. Just down the road, of course, Wickham, cracking ground. Not a bad little place, really, to play football. Will we get a result, Ross Webber? Yes or no?
Yes, we will get a result. It's difficult, isn't it? Because we don't know if the manager is still going to be here in 2 weeks' time. You've said a few times today, yes, he needs to be sacked. Obviously, he needs to be moved on at this point. And if we were a normal club, I'd probably agree. But we have a track record of firing managers too late over and over again in the last few years. Paunovic was on the Coach's Voice this week. Did a really
good
interesting
podcast, actually. Very,
really
very interesting episode.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to that, it's great. They do tactical analysis and they get current coaches on. Paunovic, who is the current coach of Chivas, who performed pretty well in the Mexican division last year, and they're doing all right again this year. He was on the other day to analyze the City versus Chelsea game and spoke a little bit about his Reading exit, which he basically revealed was him having to go to the owner and say, look, mate, you need to, it's not helping to have me here anymore. Like, it's creating more negative energy. We should mutually agree to part ways. So, Reading repeatedly don't get rid of the manager in time, which makes me think, I probably agree with you. It's probably time to move on. But I don't think they'll do it because they just don't tend to move quickly. I know Bowen wanted to get rid of Ince quicker last year.
Mm.
So, I mean, if they show up in a 4-2-2-2 again against Wickham, the only way I see them getting a result out of that is if they keep a clean sheet. And for that, I'd want to see Dorset back. And the same Bindon and Abbey. I know, again, Bindon wasn't great. I still don't think that's enough to bring in Harley Dean or Tom Holmes or anyone like that. So do I think we can get a result? Yes, if we keep a clean sheet, basically. As soon as this Reading team concedes under Ruben Sellers, mentally something just happens.
100% agree. Yeah, we just crumble. We just can't. And that, I suppose that was a positive on Tuesdays that we did show some resilience when we conceded. We were back in, and Big right. Kelvin, when he missed the penalty, he still got back in the game, and I think he assisted the last goal. So, there was some resilience there, and that's what we need to see. But just a final note on Sellers. My personal opinion is I don't think anything will happen now until the ownership changes. And we kind of went on here as news was breaking, I guess, from James Earnshaw. He's basically just said a little ownership update. It's not little, is it? It's quite big from where we are now. He understands that 4 official bids are now on the table, and it's just down to De Jong as to which one he picks, if any of them. Club remain hopeful of offering exclusivity end of this week, start of next week. Fingers crossed. So thank you very much for that, James. Obviously, that wasn't just to us, that was to his audience and followers. But, there is interest there. And to have 4 parties, 4 official bids, I think is pretty impressive given all the problems that we've got. So, fingers.
I will say,
fingers
guys, I think the number of bids and the away support, I'm not going to say something stupid. Like, I understand that, people will still look to buy a football club, even if there aren't fans there, because you can just sell it for TV money these days. But I do think that the continued support of the club, and I talked a little bit about the attendances, especially on the away side, being pretty good for League One, even though our club has just been faltering for 5 years now, really. I do think that this show of passion from the fan base is part of what's driving some of the ownership interest. They know that they've got a dedicated fan base here already. They don't have to generate a project like they might have to as some other clubs that they would bring up from League One.
Very true.
The project is rebuilding the club. We're a classic football manager rebuild save right now. I think that it's worth. There's still distance to go, but I think it is. We're not always a fan base that's nice to ourselves because other fan bases aren't always nice to us. And I think that it's worth patting ourselves on the back a little bit here.
Well, I mean, there's 2 pulls to it, really. The first one is you can't do any worse as an owner. And secondly, get in there and be a hero because or heroine or whatever. That's literally what we're at. We can't be any worse than the current incumbent. So, yeah, we'll have to see. Anyway, we will hopefully. We're not going to do a pod next week because there's not a lot of point, to be honest with you. Not because we've given up, but just because there's no games, and we kind of give ourselves a little bit of a break and give you guys a break, really, and hopefully enjoy your international break. We will be back probably after the Carlisle game, so the Wednesday of that week potentially, where we can talk about Wickham and the Carlisle games. Whatever you do in the international break, look after yourselves. I've started doing some yoga. But it's called hot yoga. And it's in a 37-degree pod. So tonight I've gone from pod to pod. It's really good. It's really good. It's in for people that know Reading. It's located in Chatham Place. I'm not on any commission for this or anything, but it's
how much
it's
do you
good.
pay for it?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly how much they pay me. Yeah, right. But it's definitely worth checking out. Like it's it moves your body in a different way, and it's kind of set up for full level. So yeah, really, really good stuff. So whatever you're doing in the international break, enjoy it. Look after yourselves. Myself and Ross will be back after the the Wickham and Carlisle games, and we'll see you soon, I guess. Ross, take care in the snow. Don't hurt yourself. Don't fall over. Don't do anything stupid.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And no podcast next week, but we'll be putting, you'll hear from me at least. So looking forward to putting something in front of you.
New content alert. Love
content.
that.
I know. Yeah.
Love that. Listen, thanks very much for all your support. Thanks very much for listening. Thanks so much for kind of being on this journey with us. At one point, we'll be doing this pod and we'll be like, a bottom 6 Premier League team. Imagine that.
Right.
Imagine that. Yeah. We'll look back on these days and go, do you remember when we were losing to Shrewsbury in the 96th minute? And this will be this pod.
Can't wait to get on the podcast and be positive about a relegation battle.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, God, do you know what? Yeah, we're going to get relegated to Championship. Great. Love it. Whatever.
Yeah.
Look, we'll get there. We'll get there together. Take care. Look after yourselves. And come on, Reading.